Good afternoon. You're listening to KGNU Boulder 88.5 FM, KGNU Denver 1390 AM 93.7 in Netherlands, and you can always dig us at kgnu.org. My name is Shareef Aleem. This is the Thursday edition of Metro. Gilad, are you on the phone with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know if I was going to get you today.
Yeah, you got me.
Yes, I was waiting to hear back from your people, but I am glad you called. I was going to play The History of Zionism by Professor William Mackey, and this was like an African-American perspective on Zionism. I don't have to do that now since you are here on the show, and Gilad, you have been a guest on Metro a few times now, and you
Indeed.
And you frequently come to the Denver area to lecture, to teach. You are a world-class musician and also a human rights activist and an Israeli citizen. Welcome to Metro today.
I'm not an Israeli citizen for many years. Don't worry about it. And I'm not a Jew for many years. But I was born in Israel. This is right. And I was educated there. I was serving in the army. And this is why I'm not. I saw things that made it very clear to me that I don't want anything to do with these people and with the state.
Okay. I mean, and when did that transformation take place?
It is hard for me to say when exactly it took place. I think that it's these kind of things do not happen overnight. It's a process, and this process is not completed yet. I was raised as a patriotic Israeli, and I can't really complain about my childhood. It was very nice to be raised as a Jew in Israel, but at a certain stage I realized that I was living on someone else's land, and I gathered that I didn't really want to defend this place or this plunderous ideology.
Right on.
And I'm basically coming tomorrow to talk about it in Denver.
And that's what I was going to...
Yeah,
that's what I was going to get to next. You're coming to Denver tomorrow to give a talk. Where are you going to be doing that at, and what is the subject matter going to be on?
To start with, I have a new book that it's kind of an attempt to explain all this issue in a satirical manner. I already saw first review. Someone said it's satirical, but it is 100% correct. I will be, tomorrow at 6:30 at Mutiny Information Cafe, 2 South Broadway, Denver, 6:30 to 8:30, and I think that we would probably have a concert or a jam session after. So it's kind of, I'm really looking forward for it. I always enjoy my time in Denver. A lot of beautiful people,
right?
And it will be my first event launching my very, very new book. It's not out even yet in America. It's called A to Zion, the Israeli Definitive Lexicon.
And you said this is a satirical work. Could you give us an example?
Satirical. It's basically a lexicon. It goes kind of different. It's like basically alphabetical. A for Arabs, for Arafat, B for BBC, or Cyclone B, C for Canaan, and so on and so on. And I wrote it together with an incredible cartoonist. So we have quite a few cartoons. It's basically the ultimate toilet book. I decided that this is where this conflict belongs, in the restroom.
Let me ask you something. I've been following the news pretty closely for the last couple of weeks, and in the United States, we have been inundated with police brutality cases, police officers killing unarmed people, running people over with cars, shooting them after they're handcuffed, already subdued on the ground. And then I look up, and the same thing is happening in Israel with the Ethiopian Jews. A lot of military.
It is more than that. I will take it the other way around. I'll reverse it. For many years, we hear about Israel marketing and distributing and exporting policing tactics, different tactics, brutal tactics that they exercise with the Palestinians. Whether it is totally flattening cities, techniques of torture. We hear that this is one of the leading Israeli export products, and recently we saw it in Brazil. Again, Brazil was clearly buying those tactics from Israel, and I have all the reference for it. And Israel is doing the same with America. They are selling a lot of policing doctrines, tactics, strategies, and this is what we see in America now. And the meaning of it is that the Palestinian conflict is not a remote conflict anymore. By now, we are all Palestinians. And this is something that should be realized, should be understood. We are living in a Zionized universe, and we have to call a spade a spade.
Right, but I was speaking, specifically to the rift that's going on with the Israelis and the Ethiopian Israelis that's serving in the military. That's being harassed and going through police brutality.
You are right, but in order to understand it, yes, you're right. Israel is a racist state, and if some people believe that it is mainly racist against Muslims, they are wrong. In Israel, racism is an hierarchic issue. We have the Palestinians who are maybe at the bottom, but they are just something like 8 or 9 class citizens, Ahead of them, we have the Ethiopian, the Falashi Jews who are black, and they are, let's say, 7 class citizens. And then you have the Yemenite Jews, and then the Iraqi Jews, and then Arab Jews, and Moroccan Jews. And it's a very, very hierarchic system that is driven by supremacist ideology. Now, my previous book, I argue that in order to define oneself as a Jew, you have to really decide first who you are against. Yeah, Jews are always I'm talking about secular Jews, always defined by negation, because for religious Jews it's not a problem. They defined by the Torah, by Judaism. But secular Jews are defined but that which they aren't. So, for instance, the Ashkenazi Jew, the European, the white Jew, is defined by negation to the European Goy. So he's not a European, he's a Jew, he's chosen. But when it comes to Israel, he's also not a Moroccan Jew, not an Ethiopian Jew, not a Palestinian, and so on and so on and so on. Now, the problem with this kind of identity politics is that people that are defined by negation are not really able to construct a positive attitude towards life, and they are in a constant state of war with their environment, and this is exactly where Israel is. It's in conflict with its neighbors, it's in conflict with its black citizens, with the Palestinian indigenous, and so on and so on and so on. It's quite devastating.
That's amazing because, the narrative that we get in the United States is that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and it's fair and it's open. They have open elections, and even until recently, most people thought that if you were a Jew, no matter if you were a Polish Jew or Ethiopian Jew or Ugandan Jew or Moroccan or Spanish Jew or whatever kind of Jew you were, I think a lot of people in America thought that if you were recognized as a Jew, that you could go to Israel and you live with other Jews in equality. And from what you're telling me, that doesn't exist.
Israel call itself a democracy, but it's a Jewish democracy, which means that if you are a Jew, you are slightly ahead of the game, But then there is a clear hierarchy within the Jewish world, and as things stand at the moment, at the top we see the European or East European even Jews, and then we meet the lower classes. And obviously the black Jews, we are talking mainly about Ethiopian. Also, I guess that the Yemenite Jews are slightly dark, and the Arab Jews are dark. So there is an hierarchy within the Jewish world, within the Israeli world, or maybe even within the Jewish world, that is skin color oriented, and it shouldn't surprise us. It is a very racist ideology.
Shifting gears a little bit, how do you feel about the influence of Israel and Zionism on American politics? We've seen recently when President Barack Obama of the United States was trying to strike a nuclear deal with the Iranians, that the Israeli government headed by Netanyahu was in opposition to this so much that they came over to the United States, and many claim that they tried to sabotage the relationship that the United States and Iran was trying to build.
It is nice that you still think that you have politics and you are an independent country, but from Zionist or Jewish political perspectives, you are not an independent country. You are basically an Israeli colony. Your foreign policy is dominated by a very right-wing, belligerent Jewish lobby. It is called AIPAC. And it is quite devastating that big America doesn't find the means to deal with this foreign intervention within its politics. But I believe, and this is a compliment to Barack Obama, that it took him quite a while, and it was very disappointing for more than a while, at least for me, because I really believed in him before he was elected. It took him a while to understand that American security or political interests and global interests should come first. And I think that this is why President Obama, found a way to deal with Iran and to strike a deal with Iran. He understood very well that for American security interests, Iran is crucial because Iran is the only country in the region that can cope militarily and strategically with the expansion of ISIS that clearly endangers American regional interests.
That was a mouthful. So what is, you said a lot in that, but one thing that struck me in peculiar was your claim that America was now an Israeli colony. Now, explain that a little bit, because a lot of people in America kind of look at it the other way around. They look at Israel as being like an American outpost or colony over in the Middle East. A lot of Israeli citizens have dual citizenship also in the United States. And there's a lot of American influence over there. So explain that dynamic to me.
I'll be very brief about it. But in the early days of this evolving relationship between Israel and America, there was a good reason to believe that Israel is there to serve American interests. At a certain stage, some analysts believed that Israel is basically an American runway, a place where American bombers, in case of a war or emerging conflict, would be able to land, refuel, being serviced, and so on and so on. Those who believe in this far-fetched philosophy realized that they were slightly wrong in the First Gulf War. Because when it came to a regional conflict with an Arab country, the last thing that America could afford was any Israeli intervention. And since then, what we see is that the Israeli lobbies are becoming more and more dominant within American politics, a lot due to the neoconservative school of thought that is largely a Jewish Zionist school of thought. Israel and the Jewish lobby, AIPAC to be precise, are becoming very influential. Not becoming very influential, they are already very, very influential. And I think that in 2005, if I'm not wrong, a very important book was written about it, about the Israeli lobby, a book by John Mearsheimer and Stephen Walt. And I think that every American should be aware of this reality and the devastating consequences. The war in Iraq, a war that led to the disastrous consequences that we see now with ISIS, was an outcome of this Zionized neoconservative school of thought. Recently, this lobby tried to push us into a conflict with Iran, then a conflict with Syria, and I'm very happy to see that as things happen now, we are starting to see an emergence of an American immune system, which, by the way, just checked out, and the Mearsheimer Walt book came in 2007, not in 2005. But the first article, I think, came at 2005 in the London Review of Books, but it then took 2 years to compose the book. So I wasn't completely wrong.
Okay, you know something? I want to give the listeners out there just a short opportunity because to call in. The number is 303-442-4242 if you have any questions for Gilad. What I wanted to talk to you about was propaganda and the use of counterintelligence. Now, I've done research that says that Israel helped create Hamas. I've done research that says the United States helped create Al-Qaeda. Now we have a new group on the scene called ISIS.
Yeah.
And I've seen research that says the United States and Israel helped create ISIS. Is there any truth to that, or am I just a conspiracy theorist?
I'm not. I'm like yourself. I'm not an intelligence expert or intelligence operator. I myself didn't work for the Israelis or the CIA. I wasn't there to deliver suitcases with dollars. But there is a good reason to believe that those operations were at a certain stage funded by Western intelligence services. There is very strong evidence that it was indeed Israel that started Hamas. We definitely know that Osama bin Laden was supported, and the Taliban were supported by America at the time of the Russia-Afghan war, and so on and so on. Now, by now, another thing that we must remember is that those operations follow their own dynamic, so it doesn't really matter who started Hamas, who funded it for the first 2 weeks or the first 3 years. By now, we know that these organizations are supported by our grassroots organizations. They are supported by local population, and they have their own dynamic, and these lead them to drift quite quickly from their funders who serve interests that are foreign to the people on the ground. So this happened with Hamas. This happened with Al-Qaeda. This happened with the Taliban. And this, if ISIS was indeed supported by the CIA, and I know all the story about Baghdadi being Israeli, if this is the case, it has zero effect on the future of this organization. So rather than getting into the debate who funded it in the beginning, what I'm saying, and I'm 100% right, we have enough reason to believe that these organizations follow their own dynamic.
But don't these organizations kind of give the United States a pretext, like Al-Qaeda did? You know, Al-Qaeda is in Iraq. No, now Al-Qaeda is in Iran. No, now Al-Qaeda is in North Africa, Central Africa, West Africa with Boko Haram now. And so it seems like when you create an organization like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, only thing you have to do to invade a country is say, well, ISIS has a base there, or ISIS has this or that there. But what I find really fascinating is that the United States is attacking ISIS in Iraq, but the ISIS that's in Syria, they're kind of leaving them alone a little bit because they're helping to fight Assad. So it's like the enemy of my enemy is my enemy. You're
tapping here into a very, very interesting issue. And I think that this is why American administration is exercising some new policies and change direction. There is indeed a complete contradiction and confusion when it comes to American traditional interests in the region. As it seems, America is now involved somehow, slightly, with Al-Qaeda and Sunni radical militants in Yemen, at the same time pushing into a conflict with Iran. But in Iraq, they do the opposite. They throw bombs on the same people. It is indeed a total mess. And we have to remember that the people who pushed us into this dark corner are not the American people. John and Stephen and from California have zero interest in Iraq. They may want cheap oil. The people who pushed us into these moronic, disastrous wars are the Israelis and their lobbies. In 1981, and your listeners are welcome to listen to it, we learned about the Inon plan. Inon was an advisor to the Israeli defense minister. He was a journalist. And he, by the way, for your listeners, I think that it is spelled Y-I-N-O-N. It's called the Inon plan. He produced a very, very interesting document, very devastating. He realized that Israel doesn't really have a chance to survive in the region forever unless they break the Arab countries into sectarian sectors that will be engaged in endless sectarian wars. This is the Arab Spring. This is what we see in Iraq. This is what we see in Syria. This is what we see in Bahrain. This is what we see in Iran. This is what we see in Libya. And this is war with no end. And why? To save this little Jewish state.
Right. Hey, listen, Gilad, we got just a few seconds left. Please tell the people where you're going to be tomorrow again.
So again, let me just open it out. So tomorrow,
really quick, we got 10 seconds.
6:30 to 8:30 at Mutiny Information Cafe, 2 South Broadway, Denver. Please come. It's going to be fun. A lot of good questions to be addressed. It is promised to be interesting.
Right on. Thanks for joining us, Gilad Atzmon. He's going to be here tomorrow. Check him out, man. It's a lot of information out there, and we got to absorb it as quickly as possible. Thanks for listening today. I'll see you next week. Peace.